Why is it that Emmanuel Macron can come to this country and stand in a press conference and tell the British public the truth about Brexit, that it was sold on a pack of lies, and yet our own Prime Minister is incapable of even confronting this fact and continues to protect the Brexit red lines, which were defined by the hardest of Brexiteers?
We must above all adapt the response to Brexit. It's that we sold a lie to the British people, which is a problem with Europe. But by listing a legal value, the problem has become Brexit. With your government, we're pragmatic, and for the first time for 9 years, we're providing a response to allow people who have tased you want to take for your useful for your country, legally admitted without taking the slightest, to help this return with the principle of one for one. People you don't want have no return. By doing therein lies the difficulty behind this pilot project. That's why we have all this work with the EU. We must get the Dublin agreements to work. France isn't going to recover the people you don't want. We must implement the agreements with the first entry countries. Cannot France receive people to whom you don't give asylum? We must rejig our agreements. We need the cooperation of the Spaniards, the Greeks. They're helping us to secure that. So it's a good agreement. We're doing the job. We're getting results. We have to adapt. We'll leave nothing.
Why have we got a Prime Minister who's intent on protecting the Brexit myths and Brexit itself, which only ensures this country becomes poorer and weaker by the day? We are hearing the truth from the French president.
I'm not totally convinced that both the European Union and, let's say, France and the UK are in the best possible position today. I'm very respectful for the voice of people and the choice your country made a few years ago, 9 years ago. And I'm lucid about the solemnity of the state visit being the first one of a European head of state post-Brexit. But I have to say, the European Union was stronger with you, and you were stronger with the European Union. We want to write our future. What we have to do is just to take the risk, to dare, and not to be the follower of a story being written by another continent. And the only way to choose our future is to do it together. We know each other, but we have to work together. And not just working. We have to take our responsibilities together. We have clearly to decide to choose our future, to write our future together. And this is why we have so much to do together. So much to do together. This is why, and I don't want to be longer, but I just wanted to address your points. I'm not the one to decide for your country, and this is a chance for me because I have a lot of work with my own country, and I'm both blessed and humbled. And I really believe that the European Union and the United Kingdom have a lot of things to do together. But I would love to see our two countries working closely together for our common future and deciding together to choose for ourselves and taking much more risk together, investing much more together on green tech, AI, defense and security, life sciences, and changing the life of our fellow citizens together, and deciding together that defending our culture, our civilizations, our values is not so much old-fashioned, but just the right and smart choice to do today, and putting more sanity, conviction, passion to defend our common civilization is not just our duty, this is our chance.
We hear the truth from previous Prime Ministers like John Major, but we have a party in power who promised change, and we all hoped that change meant a much closer relationship with Europe. But in truth, what we're getting is more of the same, more of the Tories, but in many ways worse, because there's more acceleration, because Keir Starmer has committed to a disastrous deal with Donald Trump, a deal which will only deepen over time, he promises, and also a deal which sidelines Parliament. Keir Starmer has taken it upon himself to use the Brexit Henry VIII powers to make a decision about the American trade deal, sidelining Parliament so there is no scrutiny about what that deal will do to Britain, to our businesses, and more importantly, what it will do to our existing trade agreement with the European Union and any hope of a Brexit reset. We all know, or we should know, that hormone-fed beef and chlorinated chicken and GM crops, substandard food from America, will cause enormous problems for our public health, for our food security, but it will also cause tensions with the European Union, potentially causing a trade war. And here we are hosting the President of France, mainly because Keir Starmer only cares about trying to stop the boats, apparently. In my view, the biggest risk to this country is the fact that we are food insecure, that we also potentially are looking at a deal which has contravened WTO rules at a minimum, which could open us up to an absolute tsunami of substandard imports. None of this is being addressed. Nobody's focusing on the important issues. It's all about the red meat that Nigel Farage decides to throw around. And the more that Keir Starmer chases Farage's tail, the more likely it is that Nigel Farage will become Prime Minister, because he's getting more and more publicity and more validity from our Prime Minister, instead of our Prime Minister standing up and challenging Nigel Farage, because he's the one who is the main cheerleader for Brexit for decades.
And hopefully people won't also forget what he's done with Brexit. I mean, he is extraordinary how he just managed to be the Houdini of politics, that he manages to extricate himself from all of these disasters that he's caused in the country and still comes back with total kind of calmness.
It's interesting, because what Nigel Farage says is, he says what's governing politics now is feelings.
This thing about feeling kind of works two ways, doesn't it? I mean, I'm all for having an emotional appeal to the public, but when feeling is so divorced from any kind of reality, as it was in the Brexit campaign, then I think that gets quite dangerous.
On the substantial issues that this country faces, Reform is talking the language of the average voter like no one else is. Certainly much more than the Green Party, Caroline.
He is exploiting grievances. That's what he does so well. He finds a grievance and he then hones in on it. And that is really what Reform is about. It's about bitterness and anger and pushing against the establishment. And I'm all in favour of saying that the establishment needs to change one hell of a lot. But simply doing that through exploiting grievance, I think, is actually dangerous, because we do need to have some kind of trust in our political system. And I would be the first to say that it needs a massive overhaul to achieve that. But I don't think that's what Reform wants. I think they like just kicking over everything in their sights, if you like, because they like the chaos that comes out of that.
And it is true that nearly everybody, apart from about 13%, accept that Brexit is an abject failure. What we need is truth. What we need is bravery, courage, and confidence. And that will stop and end the populism. But Keir Starmer seems sure to continue the populism, continue the Brexit damage, continue to justify the need for austerity and assault on the most vulnerable people in this country. It is absolutely appalling what is going on, and one can only hope that the Labour Party, if it can't persuade Keir Starmer to change direction, takes it upon itself to change leaders.
it's not going to do anything to smash the gangs. That is the big thing that Keir Starmer has said he's trying to do. And I just think that there will always be demand for people to come across the channel unless there are safe and legal ways for them to do it. So in the absence of that, I can't see this really making any real dent in the huge demand that you were just reporting from just a few days ago.
Absolutely.
It's massive.
It felt so obvious being on the ground. There are hundreds of people and more turning up every day who want to make this journey, and they will do, because they've done thousands of miles through multiple countries. This is the last leg. They're going to do it.
It's fantastic.
They've got nothing left to risk in a way, have they? They've already risked everything to get here. And it just breaks my heart that we can't have a genuinely European-wide response to this, because we know already, don't we, that other European countries like Spain, I think, and Italy are really worried about this one in, one out, because they're worried about, but does that mean that asylum seekers get pushed back to their countries? We need a European-wide system on this. And if it were not, I'm sorry to keep banging on about Brexit, but if it were not for Brexit, we would have that European system
sorry at all.
Where we could, then have a hope then of people do not have a right to be here to be able to return them. The example of Ukraine is really interesting, because obviously we had safe and legal routes for people from Ukraine. And as a result, I was reading a report today that suggested that just 2 people from Ukraine have ever tried to come here via boats because they don't need to. So the obvious point there is, let's put some of those safe and legal routes back in order. And the government's doing the opposite. Just a couple of weeks ago, they actually cancelled one of the schemes that had been working from Afghanistan. And we know that Afghanistan is one of the key countries from which people are coming.
There's a limit to the amount of people we can take there, Caroline. Ukraine's at war. I'm very proud that we have taken people from Ukraine, but we can't take people from every part of the world.
Many countries are at war. And that's why I come back to saying we need a European-wide way of dealing with this. Because I can just say one thing, which is that the numbers now are causing deep concern. When the climate crisis hits harder, we are going to have numbers on a completely different scale. So we need to start getting this right.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to comment below. Let me know what you think. And if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe.